The Marvel Cinematic Universe is expanding at a rate that even die-hard MCU fans are at times having trouble comprehending. Because at first, all we had were the movies. The Netflix series apparently don't count, but then Disney Plus came around, and suddenly the MCU is giving TV shows to heroes old and new, and bringing us more content than ever, which was great during 2021 when the pandemic was still ravaging theaters. And one of the new heroes that is coming to Disney Plus is that of Ms. Marvel. So allow us to show you everything we know so far about Ms. Marvel. Number 5. Who is Ms. Marvel? The history of Ms. Marvel is much deeper than you realize, but that's partly because there are two characters forever tied to that mantle, one of whom you've already met in the MCU via Carol Danvers. Yes, before she was the Captain, she was Ms. Marvel, due in part to her very complicated backstory that keeps getting altered in the comics. But then, Kelly Sue DeConnick came along in 2012 and helped relaunch Carol into the Marvel Comics universe by making her Captain Marvel. And not only did it stick, it helped spawn the creation of the character who would take up the Ms. Marvel mantle, Kamala Khan. Kamala Khan was first introduced in February 2014 and is the first Muslim hero to lead her own comic book series. Kamala got her superpowers following a global event that was linked to the Inhumans, who, if you recall, technically aren't in the MCU. More on that one later. After which she discovered she could grow or shrink to incredible sizes as well as shapeshift. Looking to Carol Danvers as a role model, Kamala took on her idol's old superhero name and joined the fight alongside Earth's mightiest heroes, where she not only impressed them, but she impressed fans as well. So much so that Kamala has been a fixture of Marvel Comics for years now, including being one of the co-leaders of the Champions group, alongside other teen heroes like Nova, Vivian Vision, Ironheart, who will also be in the MCU soon too, and more. And of course, she has her own recurring series that has expanded her character greatly. She is a great example of how comics have evolved for the better in terms of representation, and how they make characters feel more human than they technically are. Such as in the Champions series, where she and Miles Morales, among others, ditched their Avengers status because they felt they could do more help for the common man than they were doing. And guess what? They were right, and they did very well for themselves. So, thus brings us to the Disney Plus series, because there are a lot of questions going on with the show and how they'll handle Kamala both in terms of who she is as a person and her hero abilities. Number 4. Disney Plus release and beyond. Like many Marvel properties over the past year or so, Ms. Marvel had played a bit of a shell game when the release date was involved. Initially set to arrive closer to the release of Hawkeye, it was announced on Disney Plus Day that we would finally be introduced to Kamala Khan in the summer of 2022 instead. Of course, much like any piece in the unstoppable Marvel machine, Kamala Khan's arrival will not just introduce us to one of the MCU's newest heroes, but also set up more to follow. After finishing schoolwork and saving the day in her own series, Ms. Marvel will eventually cross paths with Carol Danvers, Brie Larson, and WandaVision's Monica Rambeau, Tiana Paris, and the Marvels, the sort of sequel to Captain Marvel, set for release in 2023. And before you ask, yes, Kamala in the MCU is a big fan of Captain Marvel, even dressing up like her in a teaser that we'll discuss later. The point is, she is going to be a very busy girl in the MCU, and her show will be one of many that connect to the wider MCU in regards to the movies. WandaVision, for example, directly leads into the Multiverse of Madness movie starring Doctor Strange. Number 3. The teaser and plot. While not revealing much in terms of footage, we did get a decent glimpse at Ms. Marvel on Disney Plus Day during a brief teaser for the upcoming show, revealing Kamala in an outfit inspired by Danvers' look, with matching fiery mohawk. The preview focused on Khan battling with the idea of her place in a world of green rage monsters and Norse gods. The tease also clarified what power set she'll have. Rather than having stretchy powers like Mr. Fantastic, Ms. Marvel can seemingly create energy constructs. More on that one in a bit too. As is common practice with many Marvel Studios stories, some of Ms. Marvel's plot will be inspired by the comics with a few deviations. As described on Disney Plus Day, her show will follow a similar storyline to the comics, And as such, we'll see Khan trying to balance her civilian life with her new superheroic side, and see how her family and her family's beliefs impact the adventurous life that she's living. When speaking to the New York Times before the hero's comic book debut, Marvel editor and co-creator Sana Amanat described Kamala as part of a traditional Muslim family, which sometimes provided greater struggle than any lower-tier Marvel villain could throw at her. Her brother is extremely conservative. Her mom is paranoid that she's going to touch a boy and get pregnant. Her father wants her to concentrate on her studies and become a doctor. And the teaser fully showed in regards to many scenes that the Muslim faith will be in full view in the show, which is great because at least they're not deviating that part of her lore. Number 2, the powers. Yeah, this is the sticking point, and many are already a bit up in arms about whether this will be good or not. As noted before, in the comics, Kamala Khan has the ability to embiggen herself and stretch to various proportions, much like a certain Fantastic Man that you might know. However, here it's been stated that the MCU version will be more energy construct based in the style of Green Lantern. Now that's a big deviation, and a lot of fans aren't happy. Some have even said that there are major reshoots going on right now for Ms. Marvel because of the backlash about her powers, though we cannot confirm that at present. To be fair, the MCU has altered many parts of their character's history in the past in order to suit the story that they were telling. For example, Ultron was made by Tony Stark instead of Hank Pym, a major difference and one that some fans still aren't over. Thanos wanted to stop overpopulation in the universe to create a paradise instead of being obsessed with being with death. You know, the Grim Reaper? It's a long story. Or look at Endgame, with how Professor Hulk happened and stayed that way. It's never that simple in the comics, and so on and so forth. So while it is fair that they wouldn't do a 100% accurate representation, one has to wonder why they're changing her powers this much, considering that they're a key part of who she is and what she is as a hero. One could argue that they're changing the powers to fit in with the Marvel family, but that's not exactly a good excuse that would make her more of a copycat character than her own original creation, which is what Kamala Khan is. And there are ways to explain her powers outside of Inhumans. It's honestly not that hard given how big the MCU is right now. So yeah, this is something that we'll definitely have to wait and see on. Number 1, the stars of the show. Iman Vellani will be taking the title role of Kamala Khan. She'll be backed by an on-screen cast comprised of Sagar Shaki as Kamala's older brother, Amir Zenobia Shroff as Kamala's mother, Muniba and Mohan Kapoor as Kamala's father Yusuf, and moving outside of the Khan household, Matt Lintz will be stepping in as our hero's BFF, Bruno Corelli, and Aramis Knight will play another crime fighter in the making, Red Dagger. While Brie Larson expressed her enthusiasm to involve Ms. Marvel, there's no confirmation if the captain will call in for the Disney Plus show as well. And given the recent Disney Plus series, you can expect cameos, including the maybe certain captain, to help tie the show in with the upcoming movie. No definitive release date has been made yet, but it could happen sooner rather than later, you never know. So, what do you think? What do you think of this look at Ms. Marvel and the series she's about to have on Disney Plus? Do you think that this show will appeal to people in ways that some of the other MCUs haven't so far? Are you concerned about how Kamala Khan is going to be portrayed in terms of her powers? Or do you think this will be yet another successful MCU show on Disney Plus? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time on the channel.